Welcome to another weekly Forex forecast. We start as usual on the DXY on the weekly time frame. We had NFP news last Friday, which were better than expected and continued to push the dollar higher. We are discussing this level here to the left for quite some time, and we mentioned as long as price trades above this level, there is a high chance to reach the previous highs one more time. So we are going down to the 4-hour time frame here. We can see that last week we were actually discussing to form a second base here before we then turn around. Price initially approached this area but turned around a bit earlier, and we can now see there's still a possibility for price to form this bigger expanding structure. So it is possible for the dollar to come back one more time and then finish the gap here, close the gap and finish a bigger volume accumulation in form of an expanding structure before we then turn around for the next leg to the upside. So however, for the coming week, I was preparing the other dollar related pairs more on a momentum run. So based on the Friday's news, it is likely that dollar is gaining more momentum to the upside, and therefore it would actually also already be enough for dollar to consolidate in this area a little bit and give us some form of a bull flag structure and then move higher. So we can see in the other dollar related pairs that we are preferably forecasting this version over the bigger version, but we are aware that it's still possible for bigger pullbacks where we are positioned right now. So moving on to Euro US dollar on the weekly time frame, we see we are actually, as we said, it is an area where it could make sense for a bigger pullback, right? We are here on the last bigger area of interest before we then have open gates to the previous low here, and we tapped into this twice and we did still not close below this level, right? So is it possible for price to pull back further, the bigger pullback in this area? It's possible, and we can see that it's also in line with the DXY. Going down to the 4-hour time frame, so to see where we have some potential pullback levels, we do have here some backtesting here of this structure here, so price does not necessarily have to come back up here. We have this V-shape recovery, a double top, and then selling off, and price left here this liquidity area, and that would be the first initial area I'm looking to enter a potential short again. So if I get a bigger 1, 2, 3 structure in this kind, something like that, into this liquidity area, then I'm happy to enter a short in this area for a continuation. Is there room for a potential long? It is actually quite a big area here, so we are still talking here of around 100, 110 pips, so there might be room, but considering the momentum we are in going down, you have to go to the 15 minutes to see where it would make sense. We can also see we have on the lower time, we have some liquidity points here, some areas of interest where we can get a smaller retrace. I'm not interested in something like that here for a short. It's not enough volume considering we are positioned just on the more significant low. So I'd like to see a bigger pullback. On the other hand, this would also be the level for a potential long then, right? If we gain some momentum and break above here and we see on the lower time frame some form of a bullish continuation, that would even be enough to manage a trade into this liquidity area. The first goal actually for also a bearish continuation. So I personally, that's not in my plan for next week because I will be traveling a lot and I'm not interested in lower time frame trades. Yeah, this is off the table for me. I will still look for a higher time frame bearish continuation. Australian dollar, US dollar on the weekly time frame, we can see we are still in a very, very strong momentum run. So we still have this very strong momentum to the downside. And also here we are in an area where we could expect bigger pullback. So we could really get much bigger structures in this area over the coming weeks. But as it stands right now with this momentum, nothing really points towards that direction right now. So I'm going down to the 1 hour time frame, and I'm also looking here for more a momentum run, and we can see we have a form here of a nice liquidity point. And if I get a nice 1, 2, 3 structure with at least a weighted 1 hour time frame reversal candlestick pattern, I'm happy to enter a short in this area. Not the highest quality trade, it's more really just to finish the momentum run, but we can see here we are trading below this low to the left we highlighted just before on the higher time frame. So it would make sense for price to continue momentum and then starting to form maybe bigger structures in this area then, but this alone would be enough to warrant a trade. Pound US dollar, similar in terms of positioning. We can see that we are also still in a momentum run, and we still have a gap to this higher time frame low here. So we have this gap to fill, and we are trading below this last area of interest here to the left. So this makes it slightly better positioned than, for example, Euro US dollar or Australian dollar US dollar, because we are already a bit further in the run. We still have a gap to fill. And that would make sense actually in terms of a small momentum run into these higher time frame lows. Going down to the 1 hour, straight to the 1 hour time frame. Let me shortly clean that up again. We can see here in terms of where price has to come back. We did have this low here, which got retested in form of this structure. So price does not necessarily have to go back up here again. Instead, it left a small liquidity point here, just a bit slightly above the previous low here. And if I get a 1, 2, 3 structure early next week into this liquidity area and a clear candlestick reversal pattern, then I'm happy to enter this short here early next week. US dollar Canadian was a very interesting. We had this on watch for some time, and we were looking here on the daily time frame. Let's shortly look on the weekly first. We were looking for longs for quite some time, and early last week, going down to the 1 hour time frame, we were in this area here, and we were actually forecasting for price to tap into the previous high and then give us a bearish continuation. So that was actually the goal. And then we got the rumors over the weekend that the PM might resign, and we had kind of a bit of early sell-off, and seeing that closer on the 15 minutes. Here we had actually enough confluence factors to warrant a trade. I personally stayed out of this because I was still looking for price to close it. But in hindsight, yeah, of course, with the news, potential news of a resignation, then the early sell-off is definitely warranted. So in this case, looking at it now, we had a nice 1, 2, 3 structure into this high. We closed the gaps here, and then we get actually quite a clean bearish continuation structure, which could be an easy breakout structure trade in this case, which would end up with the 7.5 risk reward. This for me was a missed trade. So yeah, something to consider next time, but we can see that we creeped back up. We almost recovered the whole run, and I'm still looking for the same. I'm actually still looking for price to correctively reach these previous highs here again, tap into this area, and then give me some form of bearish continuation on the lower time frame for then the next sell-off. And that would then still we are still here clearly in this range trade. So we will try to catch the range here again from the high down to these levels here. US dollar yen on the weekly time frame, still the same game plan. We were looking already for a continuation into this higher time frame value area here, back to the previous highs. We did not get an entry on the lower time frame, going down to the 4 hour time frame. Last week we were actually looking here for a third touch. We had the 1, 2, 3, and we were looking for this bullish continuation. We did not we did not get that. Instead, price started to turn around a bit early and is now starting to form some form of a continuation just through this previous high here. So we had news events here. That's why we got these wicks here. To the upside and to the downside, so I'm not that worried about the wicks. I'm looking still for price to form a nice continuation pattern in this area. So right now I'm looking for price to go back one more time and then come back to form a proper 1, 2, 3 structure to then enter a potential long in this area. Euro pound was not on watch last week, but the week before, and is now coming back. We start here on the weekly time frame. We were discussing this after these 2 weekly, very strong weekly candles with the long body wick, wicking through this initial low here to the left, but still leaving a gap here. Since it's too strong bullish indications, we said we ignore the gap here and are actually looking for price. Let me clean this one off, and going down to the 4-hour time frame, we were actually looking for price to clear this area here. We said this is a range and we don't want to trade within. We are interested to see what price is doing when it's with momentum breaking out of this range, and that actually happened last week. We have quite a strong momentum break to the upside and are now looking for a bullish continuation. If we get a proper bullish a bull flag continuation just outside the structure, then I'm happy to enter along in this area for the next leg up, at least into the next higher time frame inflection point. So we have here the next area of interest from this previous structure. And yeah, that would actually already be enough for a trade. And when we see if that was really enough volume accumulation to move price higher, we are already in very well positioned for quite big upside momentum. So New Zealand dollar yen, that's an interesting one, was not on watch last week. However, I had an alarm on these levels here, actually on every level, and was monitoring Australian dollar yen and New Zealand dollar yen, and this actually gave me an entry then. So I took this trade here. We had this 1, 2, 3 structure into this liquidity area here, a strong momentum sell-off, and then a lower time frame continuation. We do see here that was a nice 1 hour time frame retrace continuation pattern. So we had a bearish continuation with a 1, 2, 3 into this liquidity point, which is on the 15 minutes clearly visible. So but I took a 1 hour entry here, and it was my first challenge trade as well, with the fixed risk reward of 3, and on my other funded account I traded it with a loose stop. However, I mismanaged it again, so I got the 3-to-1 here on the challenge trade, but not on my funded account here. I just traded the stop. I reached here 3-to-1, so I moved the stop to 1.5, and then of course got tagged out here. So in hindsight, actually not really what I was planning for. I was actually trying to be better with trailing my stops based on structure, but yeah, I failed that again. Based on structure, I should have moved my stop above this low, so that would be somewhere in this area, and I would have stayed in the trade and get a much better risk reward. However, it is what it is. It's a good first trade, yeah, overall happy with it. But we can see here I'm looking for a bearish continuation. Here as well, we are actually in an area where it could form a bigger pullback. But as long as we still have a clear structure on the lower time frame, I'd like to see at least a 1 hour time frame proper structure into this previous low here, preferably even higher up in form of a bigger structure. Then I'm happy to enter a short continuation for the next leg to the downside. New Zealand dollar Canadian. on the weekly time frame, also something we have on watch for quite some time. We see we still have this gap here. We have the structure to finish into this low, and we have a momentum. So we are discussing New Zealand dollar Canadian for almost every week now, since we are in this area here and had this bigger volume accumulation, seeing that clearer on the 4-hour time frame. So this volume accumulation we have here might still be enough to drive price at least into the higher time frame value area. And considering where we are trading in terms of positioning, I'm just looking for price to finish this run here into the value area, and are therefore looking on the lower time frame for some form of a bearish continuation. Looking again here, positioning wise, we do have this low here. We have a liquidity area here, which was the initial sell off here, or the last sell off from this leg here. Price does not necessarily have to go back up into this area. I'd like to see price to actually hover around in this area and forming a proper 1, 2, 3 structure below here to then enter the short continuation into the higher time frame value area. If price is forming a bigger structure, a properly defined structure, something like that, into this area or even into this area, I'm also okay to enter a short a bit higher up. Okay, pound New Zealand dollar. We discussed that. Looking here on the weekly time frame, we had this on watch last week for an overall still bullish setup, as long as we are trading above this liquidity area here, because we are trading, we were trading above price here to the left. We close the gap here and have here quite a significant liquidity area here. And we have now the second bearish week, so it's still possible. The overall idea is still valid. So we are still in kind of bullish territory for more upside potential on the higher time frame. However, we also know that we need more volume accumulation here for the next leg up. So that's what we are looking for actually. And going down here to the 1-hour time frame, we discussed this bearish continuation and said the price was actually ready to sell off with stop protection above this low here. So for the ones who like to take a bit more risk, you might have just stayed in the trade here or have taken out. And however, I said I was waiting for a retest of this area here in form of a 4-hour reversal or something like that. We actually we got something like that here. Price reached this area again, and we have this reversal here. Then price started to gain some momentum, and I was looking then on the 1-hour time frame for a continuation. We did get a continuation on the lower time frame actually, here in form of a 2-touch structure, but it did not play out. It just ended up it would end up in a break-even trade in this regard. So that would be a breakout of this bear flag continuation. Positioning as well, we had 4-hour momentum here on the higher time frame, and then a breakout trade here with a slightly bigger stop loss of 36 pips, which would just end up in a break-even then. So, however, the overall idea is still valid. I'm looking now for price on the 1-hour time frame to finish the retrace into this very significant liquidity point here, preferably in form of a 1, 2, 3, giving me some nice reversal, candlestick reversal pattern to enter a short in this area here. The structure is slightly big now, and it's getting bigger, so I would prefer a 4-hour play in this area. Also considering that we have here a falling wedge. So for some who trade some other strategy, a falling wedge to the upside with upside breakout potential. So all these things combined with slightly with not enough momentum actually. We had here this volume accumulation, then one initial impulsive move, then we had a bit more complex structure, so a consolidation, then a consolidation into the next consolidation, into potentially the next consolidation. So it has to be very clear price action in this area to even consider then a short continuation. Pound Canadian, on the weekly time frame, we are in a very strong momentum now. We still have the gap to the higher time frame, so we were looking for longs for some time, but now have a bearish confirmation candle a second week and a very strong close, and it would make sense for price to close this gap here and then potentially turn around in this area here. So what we are looking for is for price to finish this run here into this higher time frame value area. Going down to the 1 hour time frame, I will clean that shortly. Where does price have to come back? Actually, we can see that we had this low here. This got retested in form of this structure here. We have a low here, which is just going, which actually this structure here is trading through this previous low, and price left a small liquidity area here. So if I get a nice well-defined 1, 2, 3 structure into this liquidity point, I'm more than happy to enter a short in this area just to finish the run into the higher time frame value area. Yeah, that's it for next week. That's my watch list. I tend to trade more higher time frame trades next week due to limited access to internet. Okay, thanks for watching and see you next week. Bye bye.